Hi, everybody. My name is Courtney Sykes, and today I'm going to be talking to you about listening styles. So, before we start, answer the following questions with a yes or no answer. Feel free to pause the video if need be. 1. When listening, do you solely focus on the other person's feelings, seeing listening as an opportunity to solidify interpersonal connections? Yes or no? 2. Do you like obtaining data and enjoy listening to technical information? Yes or no? 3. Do you become impatient when someone is speaking without organization and finish their thought in your head? Yes or no? 4. Is keeping on schedule important to you, and will you go as far as interrupting others when you need to move forward? Yes or no? Great, let's move on. So, what are listening styles? Well, people have their own attitudes towards listening as well as their own preferences on how they listen. Through research and studies, Watson, Larry Barker, and James B. Weaver identified four different listening styles: person oriented listening, content oriented listening, action oriented listening, and time oriented listening. First, let's talk about person oriented listening. People oriented listeners see listening as a way of building a relationship. These listeners are usually confident and relaxed in listening situations. They are both attentive and perceptive to their partner's needs and feelings. These people oriented listeners usually respond in helpful ways and practice empathetic listening. This style of listening focuses on emotions and feelings. People oriented listeners are empathetic and think listening is a way to make connections with others. These people oriented listeners score high on measures of interaction involvement. Next, we have content oriented listeners. Content oriented listeners enjoy the challenge of listening to complex information and knowledge. They enjoy learning new facts and information, and they like to listen to others before jumping or making their own conclusions. For content oriented listeners, it's less about building that relationship and more about gaining knowledge and information. Um, these listeners enjoy thinking and talking about new concepts and ideas, and they have high needs for cognition. Next, we have action oriented listeners. Action oriented listeners listens for a specific reason. They prefer concise and precise, organized information related to their own personal goals. These action oriented listeners can become easily frustrated when someone is rambling on and may go as far as alluding that someone should get to the point or telling someone that they should get to the point. These action oriented listeners draw their own conclusions before listening to an entire message. So they're basically jumping to conclusions mentally. These action oriented listeners are very precise and argumentative when communicating. Lastly, we have time oriented listeners. Time oriented listeners are very concerned with staying on schedule and on time. For them, listening is not a pleasurable time. It's really their goal is to get in and out of the conversation as fast as they can. These time oriented listeners might open conversations with a statement like, I only have this amount of time to talk to you. These time-oriented listeners also may interrupt if the conversation is taking too long. These time-oriented listeners are generally impatient and aggressive. So here's some examples of strengths and limitations of listening styles. There are both strengths and limitations to each listening style, and it is important to note that a single style can't work with or in all situations. For example, a time-oriented listening style may be appropriate when efficiency is at play, but may be deemed inappropriate when feelings are involved. Another example could be action-oriented listening style. And this could be useful when precision is required. But in a relaxed social situation, it could be seen as perhaps cold or robotic. Listening styles should match the situation you are in. It is important to be flexible to meet the demands of different listening situations. It is also important to understand and adapt to other people's listening styles. Here we are, back to the questions. So, if you answered yes to number one, you are most likely a people oriented listener. Yes to number two, you are most likely a content oriented listener. Yes to number three, an action oriented listener. And lastly, if you answered yes to number four, you may be a time oriented listener. Although it is possible you answered yes to all or one or two of the questions, it is more likely that you resonate with just one or maybe two of them. And here are the reference I use from our textbook. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to me about the different listening styles. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.